Good day, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the second ever Showers Antiquities auction. We're going to be featuring 36 lots, and we have a timer in the upper left-hand corner. Each lot will take 5 minutes to sell, and whoever we click off at the end of the 5 minute period will be the winner of the lots. I'm going to describe these 36 lots to you starting now. Again, this is for our May 8th, Saturday afternoon auction from 1 p.m. Eastern to 4 p.m. Eastern. The first lot of the 36 in the group are a series of vintage road maps circa 1950s, 60s, 70s, with maybe some other possible exceptions. We will have more than 40 of these road maps and available in lot number 1. So this will be a massive lot of colorful vintage road maps. That concludes lot number 1. Lot number 2 in this auction will be a series of vintage photographs, a large accumulation which I've gotten over the years from various estates, auctions, personal finds, buys that are brought to me, and I put them out as I buy them or as in the way that I bought them. And you can see a series of many vintage photographs circa 1880s to maybe 1910 approximately. We're looking at a grand total of approximately 30 vintage photos, maybe a few more. I'll have that exact number next week as we handle the auction. Lot number 3 will be a series, again, of interesting vintage paperback novels, mostly science fiction, Twilight Zone, swords and sorcery, and also a nice blend of Ian Fleming James Bond vintage circa 1960s paperbacks and other science fiction paperbacks to include Star Trek 2, Star Trek 2, and Star Trek 4. That is lot number 3 on the Saturday auction coming up on May 8th. Lot number 4 is a collective grouping of vintage ink blotters who I believe were most likely put out by Coca-Cola in the early 1940s. These are reminiscent of their types of products, as you can see on the ink blotter backing on each of these. These were advertising pieces featuring early science fiction. They're very colorful and they're in extreme high-grade condition. Moving along to lot number 5, we will have a series of vintage racing patches, catchy National Hot Rod Association patches from starting in 1976 and working our way up into the 1990s. There will be a huge assortment of patches in this auction. Looking at, if I had to guess right now, approximately 30 or more vintage patches, new old stock, never used, and in perfect mint condition. Lot number 6, turning the wheels a little bit and getting in a different direction, are vintage pinback buttons that I purchased some years ago to include Eisenhower, Jackson and Kennedy, all the way back to Wallace in 1948 and his presidential bid, to including Nixon, I Like Ike, of course, being Eisenhower. Lot number 7 will be our first lot today of really cool early vintage advertising ink blotters. We will have approximately 30 or a few more vintage advertising ink blotters to include Tiger's Finish, Bond Bread, Ray Bestis, Ball Band, vintage Efferle Christie style furniture, carpets, and stoves with a great colorful scene. More Christie style pieces, all different types. Lycoming Aviation Corporation out of Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Ripley's Believe It or Not advertising pieces, well illustrated, early in good condition throughout all of these series of ink blotters, as you can see with the ink blotter backs on them. We will be selling those, as noted, next week in our May 8th auction. Lot number 8 is an interesting assortment of both non-sports and sports unopened packs. These include Batman, Kojak from 1975, Dallas, baseball cards, Space 1999. There's a cello pack of baseball cards, Wanted posters, the Smurfs, Wacky packs, everyone's favorite. More wacky packs, Pop Stars, Big Baseball Stars, and the Ultra TV Smelly Award stickers from 1975. All items are as is. We will show them to you the best that we can. We try to find the very best for you, but we realize and we want you to realize we sell them as you see them sitting here. Our next item is item number 9, lot number 9, and it is a collection of different vintage first day covers to do with sports, including the 1972 Olympic Games. Each one comes with apparently the stickers, also the stamps that were used for these different sports at that time. Here's an early football. Here is a 1974 Kentucky Derby. And here is a 1969 Babe Ruth Centennial 100-year celebration of the Centennial of Baseball. So we're looking at a series of approximately 8 different first day covers, all sports related. Lot number 10 will be a grouping of small farm pamphlets circa 1910 to the 1950s. Multiple decorations, very colorful. You can see what's available here with neat names like Hubbard's Fertilizers, Farm Right, Lebanon Fertilizer Works, R&M Fertilizer, more Farm Right, Agrico, Lebanon Fertilizer, pink, green, and yellow, and a few more yellows thrown in there, and another one in purple. So you have 4 different colors just from the one, circa 1910 to 1950s. The next lot up is lot number 11. That will be featuring some very popular die cuts to include famous actors from the Waltons, including Jason, cutout doll, Mary Ellen, cutout doll, Elizabeth, Ben, Sister Erin, Brother Jim Bob. And then we get back into some vintage cowboys and cowgirls with extra suits for them. This is a huge lot. Vintage cowboys, as you can see, we'll fan these out for you here to look at. Many different famous people, dolls, and cutouts on both sides of the sheets. So a large collection of vintage cutouts that, quite frankly, you don't see that often. Lot number 12 will be a series of 1964 and 1971 Topps baseball coins. Highly collectible, small, fun pieces that the average sports collector will love. In the middle of all of this, we're featuring Mickey Mantle of the New York Yankees and many other Hall of Famers and common players, etc., from your favorite teams around the league: Dodgers, Cubs, Orioles. A large collection of these vintage coins circa 1964 and 1971. Lot number 13 will be a series of vintage travel decals, circa 1940s, 1950s. They will cover various states across the country to include the city of Tampa, Alaska, South Dakota, Connecticut, Kentucky, New Hampshire, The No Riders, Utah, Risque sticker. Florida with high speed racing related. Lake Wales, Nevada, Maine, the Garden Express, Idaho, Miami, Key Biscayne, South Dakota, Nevada. It goes on and on. A different Alaska. North Dakota, Marine Studios, the state of Washington, Wyoming, and Oregon with, again, a Risque Girl on the Oregon decal. Those are new old stock, never used. Lot number 14 will feature a nice collection of vintage war or military related patches, of which I believe the vast majority are identified on the backside of each of the patches in terms of what's noted up above: computer system, CMD, 33rd Infantry, 1st Army, 33rd Division, 3rd Division, 1st Division, 8th Army, the 193rd Infantry, 197th Infantry, 5th Ordnance. And that's just a small tasting of what we have here. As you can see, there are many more that we'll be able to discuss in a little more detail during the auction coming up May 8th, next week, Saturday, from 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern. Lot number 15, there are a series of 1930s to 1940s vintage cowboy-related music, to include awesome covers like cowboy songs, mountain songs, American cowboy songs, Tex Fletcher's songbook, The Happy Cowboy, Song Hits, Stephen Foster, and the Arkansas Woodchopper. These are vintage, original 1930s cowboy western related songbooks. Rarely seen. I've been doing this a long time, and they're amongst a few examples I've ever owned. Lot number 16 is another interesting assortment of style catalogs selected by the Redwood Company. Lot number 16 and their latest styles for men and women. We open these and you're going to see some amazing 1950s, 1960s era literature. This is 59 and 60 concerning male attire at that time. Kind of takes you back to the days of Bewitched and their advertising and what they did for men at the time when advertising was at its peak in the 60s and 70s. Just great photos throughout all of these different Redwood catalog pieces. 1969, maybe the most recent of all the catalogs that we have, but we also feature women's attire inside those. Very interesting grouping of what appears to be 8 different distinctive fashion Redwood style catalogs. Lot number 17 is an accumulation of different country store items, to include bags. This bag here, circa 1900, is advertising X-ray stove polish with little, I don't know what you call those, little devils or little brownies and going across the top of the stove there. Colonial Restaurant coffee, Cumin's potato chips, Thrivo dog food, Kyer's beer, Buckeye chewing tobacco, Women Save Your Hands Stovine stove polish advertising, circa 1900, original new old stock paper bag. That bag is 120 years old. Vintage labels, little peanut bags, Thrivo, caramel corn bags, cigar clippings, and then we get into interesting colorful labels like Duckhead Fruits and Yingling's beer, Twin Kiss ice cream, etc. Great lot coming up next week. Lot number 18, we're turning our thoughts toward the baseball world, and we have a series of vintage baseball cards circa 1957 through 1959. Great looking cards for the serious baseball card collector of vintage cards circa 1950s. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sheets, which would be 54 cards, all in decent condition as pictured here in this auction. Lot number 19. Now we're really getting into the tobacco era, circa 1910. We have vintage boxing cards. I think they're called T220s are the designation. They were put out by Mecca Cigarettes, vintage boxers, and these were done right around 1910, give or take 2 years. A series of other vintage tobacco cards that aren't seen too often. We're back to the athletes here in the Mecca and Hassan series of tobacco. We then have Cowboys, 5 Cowboy cards put out by Hassan Tobacco, and more Olympic athletes circa 1910 to 1912 put out by Mecca and Hassan Cigarettes. A wonderful collection of vintage tobacco cards. Lot number 20 is a series of vintage motor car company related letterheads. 1924 Packard letterhead, 1923 Willys Overland, 1923 Willys Overland, 1923 Oakland Motor Company, another Oakland, the Chalmers Motor Car Company, DeBear Motor Car Company. Different things, and there's some oddball items involved in here as we bought them. Wrigley's wrapper, early, probably 1940s would be my guess there. A 1927 Chrysler Sales Corporation envelope, and much more. We also have a First National Bank of Emporium, PA wallet, leather wallet, circa 1920, and other various trade cards, and a very neat piece down here at the bottom, the American Federation of Railroad Workers. That would be circa 1910, and that's a billfold from that company made out of leather, and a couple match covers. Interesting lot of different items coming up next week. Lot number 21 is another grouping of vintage first day covers still located within their original cellulene coverings. This one here is Hawaii's 50th State of the Union commemoration back in 1959. I think they became a state roughly that year or the year after. Other famous times in American history: Pioneer Jupiter, Law and Order, the flights of Orville and Wilbur Wright, the International Red Cross, a 1949 first day issue dealing with airplane flight, Mount Rushmore from 1974, saluting the American flag, which I don't think we do enough, 1970 first day issue with a wonderful illustration on it. The United States Space Achievements from 1967. This is 2 years before we landed on the moon. A celebration of the Native American Indian, one important piece of American history. And also the Ringling Circus salute from 1966, still located as noted in the original cellulene envelope. Another thing we want to point out is that we will be using a timer next week. Each item will be sold within 5 minutes. As soon as the previous item is sold, we will reset the timer and it's underway. That way we keep the auction moving along and people get things at a fair price. We're into this to sell our items, but also treat our customers extremely well and honestly. Lot number 22 is a series of well-illustrated vintage sheet music. Bing Crosby, Al Jolson, one of my favorites, The Long Boy, an early military sheet music advertising piece. Just a great look to it. Lots of others that are just very interesting. South Pacific and many others, to include Eddie Cantor. We're just going to flip through these. You have the very famous Fred Astaire with Rita Hayworth. Lots of great covers, interesting subject material. And I'm going to guesstimate at least 20 pieces of sheet music. We'll get you an exact number next week. Great illustrated covers there. Lot number 23, we're going to go back and show you another grouping that I bought some years ago of vintage photos. Slightly bigger size. I'd say the average photo in here is roughly 4 inches by 6 inches, but a lot of character in some of these photos, some cool child shots, family photos, men of distinction. Some of them are identified on here, others are not. Here's an early tintype, pair of babies, more youngsters, and other family members involved in here, and what the garb of the day was with, that could be a boy in that photo, based on the way they have them dressed. Outdoor scenes, sailing scenes, children's photos, some identification on the back sides of those, dressed in early clothing of the day, and a series more of these. All will be presented in one lot next week in a 5-minute time period. Again, controlled by that clock, which you'll be able to see and follow every step of the way. Lot number 24, we're getting back into one of my favorite fields, which is vintage non-sports. And this is no small grouping, starting off with 1950s airplane cards, 1960s monkeys cards in a near set of what appears to be 36 different cards of monkeys. Then we get back into the tobacco era. These are more from like the 20s and 30s with exploration. The Iditarod there, Alaskan scenes, and actually more of those right here. So that will be one lot of vintage non-sport cards. It's got to be 60, 70 pieces there. We'll sell that next week. Lot number 25, we're going to revisit military patches in sheets, large numbers of them, most of them identified at the top part on the paper backing on them, all for one price. And that's just half of them there. We got another large selection of these as I fan them out, and vintage military related patches, again identified. Lot number 26, we'll get back into the non-sport scene with vintage arcade cards. And these are a lot of these, and some of them risque, circa early 1920s all the way up until the 50s, with identified actors, snappy stories, the kind of cards people look for, famous actors, both sides. Again, back into the Ziegfeld Folly days of the early 20s with famous actors and actresses. These in particular are neat because they're advertising the Majestic Theater, actually from 1929, and with Joan Crawford starring in a movie there. A large photo. And then many more vintage arcade cards to include Pat Boone and many others. And they're all appear to be double-sided. So there's as many as 8 cards per sheet in that particular lot. Lot number 27, we're heading back to the vintage, beautifully colorful cowboy and western song ballads and sheet music, but more so song ballad booklets from the 1930s, maybe some into the early 1940s. Smiley Burnett, Smith's Mountain Ballads, Carson Robeson and Buckaroo, Bluegrass Roy, Walter Peterson, Jimmy Davis, Doc Hopkins, the Prairie Ramblers, one of the all-time greats from that era, Montana Slim, was selling his sheet music next week as all, and is being sold in one lot here, one grouping, and we'll have that knocked out in 5 minutes. Last one here to show you is Lulu Bell's Skyland Scotties. We look forward to seeing who gets that lot next week. Lot number 28, we head back to the field of vintage baseball cards. These are circa 1955 and 1956. 8 to a sheet there, 8 here, but also another 8 on the backside. So there's another 16. That's 24 cards. Another 16 is 40 cards. Another 8 is 48 cards. And then we finish off with another 8 of the 1956 cards. So it's a total of 56 cards, stars, and different players from that period. Cards seem to be in good condition. Look forward to seeing sports buyers come out and purchase some of our neat sports collectibles that we come across. Lot number 29 is a massive collection of vintage baseball cards once again, which this uncut sheet is part of that grouping. we're going to have in the auction next week. That's a 1979 uncut sheet of team baseball cards. Without spilling all these out at this time, you're looking at cards from the mid 1950s up through the 1970s, and there's probably 200, 300 cards in here, would be my guess. We'll get them out and look at them more closely during the actual bidding time next week. But lower grade cards, but highly desirable 50s and 60s cards throughout here. We have a lot of sports memorabilia and sports cards with Showers Antiquities. Lot number 30, we're really going to change what we've been selling here so far in this preview, and we're going to come out with two early Griswold pieces. One is a sandwich pan, or a skillet rather, and the other one appears to be an ashtray with Griswold on the bottom of that also. So two Griswold pieces for one money, being sold May 8th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern, Saturday next week. We then have a large grouping of circa 1980s and 1990s baseball card sets. This will be lot number 31. We'll be selling these all for one money. Multiple sets from back in the day, unopened packs, more sets to be sold all at one price, and amazingly, didn't realize we had all these, a triple pack of cello. It's still in the original packaging, triple packs of 1990 Fleer football cards. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with a total of 3 slots per pack, so 18 packs within a 6 larger pack series of Fleer football cards, 1990. All that being sold for one money next weekend. Back to the early vintage travel decals from the 1940s and 1950s. We have a series of different United States decals, but also advertising the United States Coast Guard in the original cellulene envelopes. Kansas, North Dakota, Vermont, Tennessee, Wyoming. This one out of the cellulene envelope. State of Washington, Washington, D.C., Arkansas, the No Riders, a risque Miami Beach colorful decal, still in the original packaging, never used. All these items here are new, old stock, and we look forward to showing them to you in more detail next Saturday. Lot number 33 will be our second and final lot of vintage political pinback buttons that we have. These are original pinback buttons circa the 1940s up until the 1970s. Franklin Roosevelt, Eisenhower, Kennedy for president. That would be John F. Kennedy. Another Franklin Roosevelt piece, pinback button related. We also have Lodge and Nixon, circa 1960. Nixon now. Many other items, such as Wilkie and McNary, circa 1940s. Those pinbacks will all be sold together next week. Lot number 34 is our final lot of advertising ink blotters, circa 1910s through the 1960s. All very colorful and advertising neat items with great advertising illustrations on them. Again, the Lycoming Corporation out of Williamsport, Aircraft Corporation, a great blue coal owl advertising ink blotter right here. Many other pieces such as the United Hotels, how to scissor cutting, different things for advertising to include medical field of Wampole's Creo Terrapin, medication, Daisy brand prescription cork, lots of interesting pieces. Here's a multiple put together ink blotter from New York City, and a couple others. Coal, again, being advertised on an ink blotter. We'll sell those all again as one complete lot right there. Lot number 35 is a series of 1966 Batman cards, almost a complete set, but missing a few pieces along the way. They're in numerical order, missing a total of what appears to be 6 cards away from a complete set of 1966 Batman cards. Batman's very hot right now, very colorful cards and highly collectible. The last lot in our May 8th auction will be lot number 36. And we will again have a great accumulation of vintage sheet music to include James Cagney and Yankee Doodle Dandy, Three Little Sisters, other interesting covers. Graphic illustrated pieces are what I like, and lots of great covers in different colors throughout this series of vintage sheet music, and to include also a rhythm and blues R&B circa I'd say 40s or 50s. Rhythm and blues stories and photos is also included in there. Selling all of those pieces, probably more than 20 overall. Everything will be sold, as noted, a week from today, which will be May 8th. This was our preview for that auction. And here is what you need to do to sign up for our auctions. And from what I understand, these previews and our auctions can be replayed in order to be able to see things better. But we'd love to have you sign up and bid in our auctions. We'd like to do this for some time. And we promise to bring you interesting stuff, highly collectible items that you can either keep for yourself or resell and be able to make good money from them. We strive to find the best stuff. We attend the occasional auction. We go to markets. We get house calls. We go anywhere we can find and buy highly collectible vintage items that not only interest us, but will also interest you and other people and help you do whatever you seek to do with them, whether it's reselling them or adding them to your collection. We look forward to seeing you a week from today, which will be May 8th, for our second auction. Our first auction is today, May 1st, from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. But this auction we just showed you, the preview we showed you, was for May 8th. And we will be using, as noted, that 5-minute timer in the upper left-hand corner for each of the lots that's being sold. And as soon as that 5 minutes runs out, we will shut down the auction at that point and declare a winner. We look forward to doing business with you and talking to you soon. We'll see you at our next auction. Thank you very much.